The static keyword in C# is important because when you use the static keyword on a member, like a property or a method, the member then belongs to the type and not to an instance of the type. Let me give you an example. Here's an instance property called circumference, but what I want to call your attention to is math.py. Math is a class, pi is a static property on the math class. In order to reach that property, I don't need to instantiate the math class. I don't need an object. In fact, it's an error to try to invoke a static member through an object instance. Instead, you need to use the type name. You can also use the static keyword in front of a class to create a static class, and a static class can have only static members. It can't have any instance members. And you cannot instantiate a static class. Many times we'll create static classes with static members just to handle scenarios like this, where you need a quick and easy way to reference something that will give you the value of pi, and you don't necessarily need to instantiate an object just to do that. Inside of our sample project, I was using a static member on the shape class. It was the random number generator. So _rand is a static member, and it's also implicitly private because I didn't put any accessibility modifier here. We could make this public, but even when it's public, I would not be able to get to that through an instance of the class. I would have to walk up to the shape class and get to that random number generator. Of course, we don't want this to be a public member. And I also wanted to point out that from within this class, it's legal to access that static member. And I can do that without using the type name. There's another example in here. Every time we're setting up a brush to paint the background of a shape or paint the outline of a shape, we're using colors.black. The built-in colors like green, black, and red are all static fields on the colors class, so we don't need to instantiate an object of type colors. We can just use the type name dot and then the static member. One implication of the static keyword that you should be aware of is that, unlike instance fields, where every object that is instantiated, whether it's a circle or a square, is going to have its own copy of a canvas field and its own copy of an element field because those are instance fields, a static field there is only ever one copy. No matter how many circles you create or how many shapes you create, there's only one copy of this rand field for the entire application.